So Mossbergs have pretty rough actions. So I'm going to give you some pointers on how to smooth up the actions. This is a 20 gauge. This one works really great from factory. Doesn't have any issues. So what I'm going to mostly show you is on 835, and just also I'm going to cover some working the action over a little bit to make it smoother, and also had an ejection problem where it was ejecting out the bottom. So I'll show you how to fix that. And another tip on 835s, you don't want to shoot steel shot in an 835. 500s will fine, but if you do in an 835, be sure to get the smaller bore barrel, because the steel shot coming out, the wads are not specifically designed for the over bores on a 12 gauge wad, so you don't want to shoot steel shot out of an 835. You really just don't want to do that. You'll score your barrel if you do. So let's get started. That was my first tip, so let's get started on the rest of this. I'll show you how to clean up your action and give you a tip on how to fix that bottom dropping problem. I'm going to start by removing the pin, because you got to take the trigger assembly out. So I'm going to knock this pin out and remove the trigger assembly. When you take the trigger assembly out, you're going to have two bars that will probably fall out on you. One of them is this one right here. Easy to come out. And the other one is this one. This one doesn't always fall out, and if it's binding, it'll actually stay in there. And these are your two pieces. Now this gun has been a good cycling gun from the beginning. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to go ahead and remove the barrel and take the barrel out. This way we can get to all the working parts that are in here that we need to look at. Primarily what you look for is you look for this area right here, if this is putting unnecessary pressure on this piece here. If it's putting too much pressure on it, it'll have to be filed down, because it'll put drag on this mechanism right here. And that's this piece right here. It'll make it drag. These pieces are inherently rough from the factory. They have a lot of bumps and a lot of rough edges on them. To smooth up the action, you smooth those up, and that's what I'm going to show you next on one that's already been smoothed up. This one has enough play, it seems to be doing just fine the way it is. This one here, you can see the shiny right in here where this has been reworked. This has been filed and it's been smooth mostly on this side right here. You want to be careful when you're filing that, because you can take too much off, because that affects the timing of the gun as far as loading and emptying your shells. It affects this bar right here. This is pretty much flush with it. It's okay if it comes, this is a little higher than this coming out. That's okay. This side's pretty flush, because you do want it to bump it. You do want it to be up just a little bit, but in the forward on position, you want it to be flush so it won't drag there. This bar, what it does is it lifts up and allows your shell to go in. If you take too much off of this right here, if you take too much, it will not lift high enough, and you'll have a loading, you'll create a loading problem. So you want to be careful not to take too much off of that, but you do want enough that this slides real super easy. Now, if you look at this, you'll see where I've already filed these down and smoothed this one up. And I've done this one as well, but I went ahead and put some bluing on for demonstration purposes. As you can see, the shininess, you see those are high spots. That's what they are. And these high spots often will cause the drag. It means this item, instead of being flat, is curved. And that's what creates a lot of drag. So you want to clean those off and make them as smooth as possible. And you want to hit it with the smooth stone, or something smooth. Even sandpaper would work as long as you're on a flat surface. And just smooth that up and get it as smooth as possible. Now, this doesn't matter because I'm not after the whole thing. I'm only after what slides in the track on the receiver. This slides here, this slides here. This doesn't. And it's not important out that far. So this one has already been done, but I'm just showing you what it will end up looking like, or it could end up looking like. Now, if your high side was over here, then it would take that off, is what it would do. But this one had a real bad issue here, and was causing the gun to be extremely, and I don't mean lightly, I mean extremely difficult to cycle. And with that being fixed now, it's just very, very smooth action now. So when you do that and you put it back together, oil it here, and oil inside where everything slides and where it goes. This one here had a problem of ejecting shells out the bottom when you cycle the action. This would lift up like it's supposed to, like it's going to load a shell, but it wouldn't load a shell. It wouldn't release it from here, it wouldn't do that, and then when you closed it, it would kick the shell and it'd go out the bottom. The fix for that was in this bar right here. This here, you can see, I'll try to get that shiny on there. See that shiny right there? This here was actually going in this area, into the plunger area, and it was stopping the shell. It was bumping against the shell itself, and it was jamming. And as soon as the action slid forward and pushed on the bars, it would release the shell, and the shell would drop out the bottom. By doing this right here, and just a little bit, it did not take but maybe 8 to 10 at the most hit with a file, a very smooth file, and it got this gun working. And that's took care of the entire problem of it dropping shells out the bottom. Some people say, well, just bend this or something like that. No, don't bend unless you have to. Try to get it to work with what you got. This gun also had a problem of it being too tight when it was pushed in place. This thing was just super rigid, which was causing cycling issues, a drag on your drag when you pull it back. If you look here, you can see that I barely, and I mean barely, filed, but there were rough edges there, and I just barely filed just enough off to smooth it up and to get a little free play between there and between that plate. Now this gun cycles perfect now, and of course, when you got a perfect shooting gun, that helps. Also on this one here, not only did I do the side there, but I also hit this right here. So I hit it on this side, and you can see the original factory punch where they stamp these things out. You can see the roughs right there. But just that filing there and a little bit here gave this where it free play, where it would actually do a little bit of rocking when it's supposed to be locked up. And that's, you only want a hair, and I mean just a small amount. So that's the fixes that I have on these Mossbergs. These are 835 shotguns, and which they're all, each one, just the one original seemed to be the best shotgun. Didn't have any problems. It's still a little on the rough side on this one here, but I'm not going to mess with it because it's not enough to really for me to even worry about it. It's seating in really good, and some guns are worth it to do something with it, and some of them you just want to leave them alone, because if it's cycling good and smooth and every time, sometimes you're better off just leaving them alone. That was my fixes right there for the 835s and the Mossbergs, the 500s. You guys have a good day.